Hey there, golfers and golfettes. Tom Saguto here, PGA member and founder of SagutoGolf with your weekly e-tip. Thanks for tuning in. This week, I want to talk to you about when you get stuck between swings, or more specifically, if you are transitioning from a two-plane swing to a one-plane swing, or transitioning from a certain swing philosophy to another, and the issues you could experience. And this video is going to cover some of the common flaws that you'll experience when you hang out in the middle between two swings. So for example, if I'm switching from a two-plane swing to a one-plane swing, and I've got elements of the two-plane and one-plane, I'm stuck somewhere in the middle, that can cause a lot of problems and oftentimes confusion. You might give up or get frustrated in certain areas. This video will eliminate some of that. And before we get into that, I want to talk to you about what the difference is between a two-plane swing and a one-plane swing. The two-plane swing was a swing that caught popularity in the early 80s was used exclusively up into the early 2000s. And then the one-plane swing was one that had been used pretty much from the beginning of golf up until the late 70s. And so, there's a bike there. Pretty much from the beginning of golf up to the late 70s, and then it's recatching popularity now with almost every golfer on tour is a one-plane golfer. Two-plane swing. It's called this. It essentially means that, and just think of it this way, that when you get to the top, your lead arm is above the shoulders, so above your shoulder line. And a lot of times the golfer in this swing has a level shoulder turn, so they take the club up like this. They got high arms. Now consequently, the golfer has to drop their arms on the downswing in the slot, as it has been taught. This is called dropping in the slot, and then hit the golf ball. The one-plane swing is the opposite of that. Take the lead arm, and your arm is on the shoulder line. So my arm is not high, it's on my shoulder line, and the golfer in this swing doesn't have to drop the club in the slot. They just have their arm in the slot already, so they approach the golf ball from the same position they started in. I started out my golfing in the two-plane swing and found that to be very inconsistent for me because I was having a difficult time coordinating, dropping the arms and hitting the golf ball, lifting and dropping. It was a very difficult move for me to coordinate. Not only that, I was a pretty big slicer because I could keep my arms really high and I would chop at it a lot of times. Now, that requires a lot more hand-eye coordination and timing, and I would suggest, if you can, to opt for something simpler like the one-plane swing. The one-plane swing doesn't require lifting and dropping. It just requires taking the club back and pretty much turning. Body rotation is the core driver, and the arms are a little bit lower. You don't have to take the club back as far up. You're going to turn the lead shoulder downward instead of level. So it's actually more body friendly, ergonomic, and takes less effort. So I maintain a relationship to the golf ball as I take the club back. My left shoulder turns down and my arm's on the shoulder plane. It's a lot simpler to do that because you don't have to lift and drop, and also don't have to worry about other things like turning the hands over or trying to roll your hands at any point in the swing. It's a lot simpler, and I recommend you do it. Okay, so let's say you decided you want to switch to the one-plane swing. Here are some common areas where you run into issues if you're stuck in between. And it happens when you have done a two-plane your whole life, or you've lifted your arms your whole life. This is some common areas where you would run into issues. Number one is posture. The one-plane swing posture is different than the two-plane swing posture. In the one-plane swing, we don't want to lift the club to the top. We don't want the arms getting high. The arms going more around. You can run into some issues in your posture if you don't have your hands far enough out in your setup and you don't have enough forward bend to the ball, because we need to be able to turn our shoulder down and take the club back so that it's behind my right shoulder here. My hands are behind my right shoulder, not above. This is a huge point. This is a huge point because if you have your hands too close to your body, like the two-plane setups like this, you won't be able to, you'll often hit a lot of hooks and pushes, and you'll seem to hit the ball left all the time or right all the time. It never really goes straight, and that's really annoying. So if you got your arms in close, this is a two-plane posture, and you're trying to get the club on one plane, a lot of times the club will get too low too early, cause you to lift and chop. That's not good. Instead, if you give yourself more space, you get your hands under your chin, you get a little bit more forward lean of the ball, you can take the club back without lifting to here, and then you have enough space to swing. And if you're like me, I've got long arms, this is very beneficial to have the club out more and have that relationship to the ball. Another common mistake is that golfers who switch to a one-plane swing, the lie angles of their clubs are too upright then, because the golfer that switches to a one-plane swing, they find they need to bend over more, like I just told you. They got their hands under their chin, and this causes the club to sit very upright on the ground, assuming you've got a standard loft, okay? The club sits very upright. What this does to your ball flight, it causes you to start almost every shot to the left, and you'll seldomly hit it perfectly clean. You might be nitpicky. When you hit it clean, it tends to start or draw more or start a little bit more to the left. And that's because as the club gets more upright, the club face in fractions starts to point more to the left, and so when you hit the ball, it starts starting more left with an upright club. When you get to this one-plane swing and you see the toes very up in your setup, you're going to need some flatter lie angles. So a lot of times golfers that do a one-plane swing, they'll have a flatter lie angle, such as maybe like what's standard versus standard, it might be like 2 degrees or 3 degrees flat. So the lie angle actually will not sit so upright anymore. It'll begin to sit closer to the grass, but you want it slightly upright, just not a lot, okay? So a little bit flatter lie angle required. You want the club to sit more down this way. All right? And I know this from experience. I play with standard lie angle clubs. I'm gonna have to get them adjusted because the ball keeps starting to the left as a result of lie angle. It's not a swing flaw, it's a club flaw. It's a club adjustment that you need to make. All right, the next thing you need to understand when transitioning is that third part. Yes, we're taking the club back without lifting, but you need to make sure that you don't roll the club in the takeaway. So, if you are used to rolling like this, toe up in the takeaway, we need to get rid of that because you are now transitioning to a one-plane swing. We're not needing to lift. I mean, toe up, that club face is open already. The ball's going to start right if you come back to the ball with that open club face. So we don't want that. What you want is a takeaway without rolling the hands. So we have to take the club back more like this, with the club face angled down towards the ball, and then you keep that going like this. For you rollers out there trying to do a one-plane swing, it's very tempting at first to roll the club very low, so the clubs behind me here are in takeaway, and keep it very low, and that simply causes you to end up swinging over the top, which goes against what you want in the one-plane swing. We don't want to swing over the top. We wouldn't want to chop at the ball. Hooks, pulls, pushes, everything. That's what happens. So having your takeaway more out in front of you here, keeping it going up this way, that is more ideal. Having a good takeaway sets you up for this. Next part, getting rid of keeping this trail leg flexed. You're going to be doing a more rotary swing with the one-plane swing. So the hips are going to have to turn. And this is body friendly. This will get the stress off your lower back, but as you take the club back, allow the right leg to straighten. You see some of my hips here. So check out pictures of Sam Snead. You'll see this a lot of times, or Ben Hogan, best ball strikers in the 60s and 70s. You see a lot of this hip turn as a result of the one-plane swing. The next part that's really important for you to understand is if you're going to switch to a one-plane swing, or if you are in transition and this is something that could cause you a problem, is that you want to make sure the arm, the lead arm, is on your shoulder line. So, when you start out in this and you're used to lifting your arms and you're transitioning to one plane, the arm on the shoulder line dictates a lot of how your shots are going to fly. You need to have the arm on the shoulder line because that will produce the most consistency for you in this swinging method. If the arm, so you'll start out two-plane, you're getting your arms high, so you're taught to swing them lower on your shoulder line. And then it starts hitting the ball really well for you. And all of a sudden, you start overdoing it. You get the arms too low on the shoulder. So all of a sudden, my left arm is below my shoulder line. This causes a lot of chunks. You don't want to have a lot of chunks or a lot of pushes and a lot of thin shots. So if the arm gets too low, kind of goes back to the takeaway, but if your arm's too low on the chest, you need to get this arm up a little bit more. I'm not saying lift it, but I'm saying elevate it a little bit. I don't like the word lift. Get it up a little bit more, put it on plane for you, because you're technically below the shoulder line here. You're below plane. It's going to cause you a lot of issues, especially if you got long arms, which is why I also love the posture tip I just gave you. Helps you keep the club from getting too low too early. Last thing, and my favorite tip, is make sure you turn the shoulder down. The lead shoulder must go down in the one-plane swing for you to hit the ball consistently. We take a divot. So, the lead shoulder turning down helps you and your body to maintain a relationship with the golf ball, which is key for clean contact. You want the golf ball to be your friend, you need to have a relationship with it. So lead shoulder, as you take the club back, begins to turn downward, and this downward motion of the shoulder provides the upward motion, the initial upward motion of the club. So as I turn the shoulder down, the club gets into a perfect spot in the takeaway, and I continue to turn my shoulder down to the top of my backswing. If you turn your shoulder level, like in the two-plane swing, you turn it level and lift your arms, you have no relationship with the ground. That's why the two-plane golfers tend to struggle a lot and they have to hit a ton of golf balls to be consistent. It's because they never really have a relationship with the ground. They have to get level, lift the arms, drop, and hit a lot of moving parts. Whereas in the one-plane swing, I'm just here, normal setup, I turn my shoulder down, and there I go, and I can hit the ball. But make sure you turn that shoulder down. You need to be able to hit the golf ball. You have to have a relationship to the ground, to the ball. All right, golfers and golfettes, those are some common misconceptions or things that you need to work on if you're stuck somewhere in between the two-plane and one-plane swing. I can testify with 100% confidence after having tried both methods. I'm currently in the one-plane method, but after having done both methods, the one-plane is the simplest one to execute. And this is coming from somebody I'm a PGA professional. I wouldn't steer you in the wrong direction. I've tried everything, and I don't want you to struggle, but I've done the two-plane earlier on for maybe the first 10 years of my golfing life. I did two-plane, and I almost quit the game like 5 times. And I almost quit going to PGA, get my PGA card because of it. And then I discovered a much simpler, body-friendly method, which is now why I'm teaching you here today, the one-plane type of backswing, because it's a lot simpler and it changed my life. To put it most straightforward for you right here, I would shoot 75 or 95 with a two-plane swing, and it was mostly on the higher end of that spectrum, mostly towards the 90s, and I was frustrated. I was hitting thousands of balls a week trying to get it right, and then I discovered the more friendly method I'm teaching you now, and in 2 weeks I was shooting 75 consistently, and I was hitting the ball further with less effort. I really can't ask for any more than that. So, without further ado, I totally recommend that you invest in a one plane swinging method. Now there's a lot of different swings based around it, so you're gonna find there is a one plane swing, but I'm just saying generally that having the arm on the shoulder plane is the most efficient way to hit a golf ball from experience, and I'd rather have you do something that's a lot easier for you to accomplish than having to do so many motions, because we are hitting a golf ball in a fraction of a second. So doing all these motions has nothing to do with hitting the ball. Keep it simple. The simpler the method, the more consistent you will be. So let's go over some of this again. I've got a 5-iron. To give you an idea of what I've been struggling with recently, my posture, my hands were too close to my body. My arm was getting too low, and I was having these hooks. I couldn't stop hooking the ball. But then once I got my posture realigned more with this, where I needed to have it, out here with my long arms, I could get the club on the proper path so that I didn't hook it so much. All right, starting with my posture, here we are. Hands under the chin, relationship to the golf ball. I can dig that. Alright, golfers and golfettes, go out there, and I hope this video clarifies any confusion you might be having if you're stuck between a two-plane or one-plane motion, and that you should eliminate anything in between if you're going to do one or the other. So Tom Saguto here, PGA member and founder of SagutoGolf, helping you to make the most of the game you love. Have an awesome week.